Carl Franceschi with DRA Architects. First of all, we're very happy to be on the project. I don't think we've been to a prior school committee meeting, so thanks for having us. We're happy to give you this update. We thought we'd give you an overview of the process and explain what we've done to date in the last couple months since we've come on board, and we'll explain, at least in the short term, what's coming up too. So the slide shows the primary team members here. Obviously, the town, led by their building committee, is our prime contact here, driving this project. Encompass is your owner's project manager. That's a new requirement by the state of Massachusetts for all public projects like this, that a community have a firm like Dom and Tim Bonfatti, who are very experienced in construction and public construction. They understand the process, and they keep an eye on us as architects as well. DRA, we're the architecture firm selected for the project. Scott Wooden couldn't be with us tonight. He's our project manager. I'm the principal in charge for the project. You can see all your building committee members there. It's a very strong group that represents a good cross-section of the town, actually, and it's partly a requirement of the school building authority at the state level that you have such a committee, but it has financial people, it has educators, it has political, the selectmen, political representatives, so and citizens and people with experience in construction and so forth. It's a very good mix of people. One of the other things to call your attention to, next to the town of Stoughton, there is the MSBA. Those initials stand for the Massachusetts School Building Authority, as you probably know. They are really a partner in all this. They don't show up at our meetings necessarily. Really, Dom's firm stays in communication with them, filing monthly reports and all. And there are a few key milestones that we'll talk about that we touch base with them, but they are an important partner in this whole process, sort of a silent partner at times. But they establish guidelines. They prescribe this process, actually, that we're going through. And ultimately, they're going to fund a good portion of this project when it ultimately gets approved by their board. And they are funding the feasibility study portion of it right now. So next slide, Dom, talks about the process. Right, the right arrow should do it.
Spacebar should do it too.
Spacebar does it as well. There's a lot of ways. There we go. To this phase of the project, there are three steps along the way here, because we haven't been authorized to go beyond the schematic design level yet, either by the town or by the state. And the three important steps to get there: first, coming up with the program, and I'll explain what the components in there. Second is then deciding from among the many options which is the preferred option for this project moving forward. And then third, once we've identified that preferred option, developing it to a sufficient level of detail that we can put a good cost estimate on it, as well as scoping it out and budget. If you hit it again, Dom, it'll sort of show the various steps. So in this first step, which is due in September, coming up here, and just over a month, we'll be submitting the preliminary design program, and it consists of evaluating the existing conditions of the current high school, developing the educational program, which the superintendent and principal and others are already well on their way to, and then identifying the alternatives that we're going to look at. And again, it's identifying the alternatives, not selecting them yet, because in the next phase, which is December, is when we identify the preferred alternative as to whether it's going to be an addition renovation or new construction, and if it's new construction, where it's going to be on the site, how it's going to be configured, and so forth. And then once we agree on that and the state agrees on that, the third step is developing that to greater detail, which would be next spring, to go both to the board. If you do it one more time, Dom, it shows both the MSBA board has to approve it, and then obviously the town has to approve it. And that's the major votes along the way for the project. So we've identified a few key issues here. I just touched on some. In any project like this, it's important to do the programming first, not design, just programming. What do we want in a high school? You know, educationally and from a configuration point of view, and numbers and sizes of classrooms and things like that need to be identified before we design anything. And then here, looking at alternative sites was important, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Involving the community, we understand there's a lot of people hopefully watching now and following the project along that want to and are able to be involved in this process. And again, we'll touch on that in a moment. So the first step, go ahead, Don. Thank you. We had our first community meeting already back in, when was it, early June? June 6th, that's right. And it was well attended. We actually had 2 sessions. It was very well attended. It was on a Saturday, and it allowed us to share this process with the community and to start getting some input as to what was important to some of those members that showed up. There was good give and take there, and it's the first of several community meetings that we'll have. So this first step that we're getting ready to submit in September, as I said, consists of these 3 parts: analyzing the existing conditions of the current high school, developing the educational program, and identifying alternatives. So the existing conditions analysis, the important thing to note is it's not just the physical conditions, but also programmatically. How is the building serving you? You know, are classrooms too small? Is the building not in the right configuration? Is the special ed, being taught in closets or out in the hallway? That sort of thing. So the building gets analyzed both physically and programmatically. Then the educational programming part of it, as I said, is well underway. Even though our firm does a number of schools, and we understand schools, fairly well, we still involve an outside consultant, Dr. Frank Locker, who's an educational consultant, to assist us and to work with the superintendent and principal and others in developing a vision, helping us turn that vision into a space summary, and then ultimately we develop some bubble diagrams, as you'll see if we go through this. So we've already met both individually with department heads and key faculty members, and then we've had these group visioning sessions that involved 40 or 35 people, I think, or so were assembled on a 2-day workshop kind of format to collect a lot of information. A lot of it had to do with so-called 21st century learning. Where does Stoughton want to be? Where are we now? And where do we want to be? And then it sort of culminates in a couple diagrams. If we go to that, next. Both, how does the building want to be configured? And again, we sort of start very conceptually, simplistically at this point in that regard, but we also have in the next one, look at all the components of the school. And it may be hard to understand that, but we're starting to appreciate that there's a desire to break the school down into not just long, unending corridors with classrooms on both sides, but smaller learning communities or clusters of classrooms that have some flexibility and some ability to break the 1,000 or so pupils that will be here into smaller groupings, physically as well as sort of administratively. And there's certain other ideals about, where does a library, or as we start to call it, learning commons, where does that get located in this kind of mix? Those all come out in this kind of a diagram, and it becomes kind of a guide for us moving forward. It may not look like a building now. That's our job as architects, sort of, is to turn this sort of diagram into a building, ultimately, a floor plan and a building. So just to quickly share with you some alternatives, and again, these are very preliminary. They don't represent design. They just help us understand the spectrum of possibilities. And so the first one here is kind of a spectrum. If you can read that, it's set up in a decision tree sort of fashion, because the state asks us to consider, the greatest variety of possibilities, and we don't make assumptions that, for instance, the new high school is going to be located on this site. We're asked to look at other sites in Stoughton, and both public and private sites, as well as the existing. So that was one of the first major decisions that we needed to look at. And we can go on down. We actually, together with Compass and the building committee, and town officials, DPW, Planning Board, others, town engineer, helped us identify publicly owned parcels, large privately owned parcels that might be available, and we actually identified 10 potential sites, and we've already evaluated those. And as it turns out, though, in this matrix, across the top there are the 10 sites, and I know you can't read them all, but one of them is the high school, the first one. And the other 9, for various reasons, did not meet the standards. Either the location was poor, the size was too small. When we actually get down to buildable area, when we excluded wetlands or easements or restrictions like that. So we found that very few of these sites could actually satisfy the size requirements for a new high school, which includes not only the building, obviously, but playing fields and parking areas and so forth.
So did we submit those yet, the ones that we're not going to take?
We've voted on that.
I know we're in the process of it. Has it been submitted yet?
That's going to be part of the September submission. Okay. Yes. Okay. So going back to that chart then, if you hit it again, Dom, all those sites have been crossed off then. So now we're on the left-hand side of the chart, which says, okay, the new school, and we use that term new, whether it's addition or renovation, because hopefully by the end of the project it's new one way or another. The new school will be located on the current high school site. And that current high school site, remember, is not literally the land that this building occupies. The town, owns the West Elementary, the middle school, and the green fields in between. That's all considered the high school property. So we are looking at various options in that regard. So you can see we've identified at least, 4 addition renovations, 4 new construction possibilities, as well as kind of a baseline. Again, that's a requirement, not really a solution, that says, how much does it cost just to fix this building? Disregarding the educational program, just to fix the things that are broken. And then there's another one that says, what if we just kept within these walls and tried to do a renovation to this building? What would that result in? And these may quickly drop off the map as we move forward, but again, we want to show the state that we are being open-minded and sort of casting a broad net here of all possible solutions. So just diagrammatically, addition renovation solutions, the reason we think there are at least 4 of them, it has to do with how much of the existing building we would salvage and how much of it we would demolish and replace with new construction. So at one end of the spectrum, it says, well, maybe we demolish very little and we just add, a new gym, and we convert the existing gym into a library, and we look at other renovations. Next step might be, well, we're going to demolish the A wing too. That's kind of lived its useful life. It's not going to help us, and the gym is too small. That needs to be replaced. What if we were to look to replace those portions of the existing building? Moving a little further, what if we salvaged, one of the classroom wings, the wing we're in right now, say, and the library or the cafeteria auditorium wing, but demolish the rest and replace that with new construction. And getting down to the 4th option, which salvages just the cafeteria auditorium wing, and the entire rest of the building would be new construction. It's still called an addition renovation. Probably when you look at it in the end, it's going to look like a new building. So those are all possibilities there. Here's what they might look like 3-dimensionally. There's the existing school. You can go through these fairly quick, Dom. There's one option that says, let's replace the A building and the old gym with a new piece. There's an option that says we're going to replace a classroom wing and the A building and the new gym. Next one is the one where we salvage the blue areas, only the cafeteria auditorium, and everything else is new. Then a couple new construction options that we've looked at. And the idea with new construction on an existing site, the ideal is to try and build the new construction while the existing school remains uninterrupted as best we can, with the least amount of disruption, the least amount of phasing, allow the new school to be built all at once, allow the existing school as best we can to still operate, to still have buses, still have drop-off. Obviously, some playing fields or some parking areas are going to be disrupted in these various options, but The various new construction options have more to do with where the building is placed relative to the existing. So in this one, it's kind of L-shaped. This one, it's a courtyard tucked closer to Adams Street. The next one is more towards the middle school, but behind the existing high school. There in red, you can see it before it's demolished. So there's a variety of options, and that's kind of the package of information that we're working on with the building committee to ultimately submit in September. The next step will be to develop some criteria, and we'd love input by yourselves as the school committee, how to evaluate those options. Because yes, we have some experience, Dom has some experience in his firm as to how to evaluate these, but we really want to tailor it to Stoughton's desires. What's most important to you? Obviously, cost is important.
Yes.
But oftentimes, it's not the first cost that identifies the preferred option or the winning scheme, so to speak. There are a lot of other factors. How about operating cost? How about longevity, durability of materials? How about how well does it meet the educational plan? You know, and so there are a variety of factors here. We oftentimes get into weighting the factors so that some count for more than others. Obviously, cost is very important. We understand that. That maybe gets a higher weight. Meeting the educational goals probably deserves a very significant weighting factor too. So this is a fluid list that we'll be working on in the coming months. It will really come to play in the fall after we've developed those alternatives and we start to evaluate them with the building committee. And then the tool we'll use, it looks something like this, where we would have, in this case, 1, 2, 3, there's 4 options that were being evaluated, and in the left-hand column would be those criteria that we've agreed upon. And then we'd score or weight or grade. There's a variety. Some people like to be subjective about it and just say this one meets it, this one doesn't. Others like to be quantitative and put numbers and add them up, and we can work either way. But ultimately, generally, we come to a consensus with the community. It's not just our opinion or our recommendation, but and that's the next step in the fall that we submit in December. So those are the steps. I just like to include this, unfortunately it's not on TV right now, I guess, but that there are wonderful opportunities here for people to stay in touch with the project. Jean Ostroff is doing a great job maintaining the Facebook page. This presentation will probably show up there relatively soon. She keeps updating that page regularly, so we wanted to just put those addresses up there. But there are a couple other ways, too, to stay in touch with what's happening on the project and see the information that's been made public. So that's our show. That's what we are.
Thank you very much.